Andrew, does that concern you, that they got to win over Collingwood at the MCG and still weren't quite playing their best footy?
Yeah, I think you can look at it both ways. Like, it was credit to Freo for winning, but there's some vulnerability in our eyes to the way that game looked. And I think Justin sort of said it himself. The Pies were taking the way that game looked for a long period of that, but ultimately they got the job done. So you can look at it both ways, I think.
Andrew, you are massive underdogs getting into this game. Do you guys embrace that tag?
Absolutely we do. That's no surprise. I'm not sure the last time team that was $1.03 lost, but that's the beauty of this game. We're a young developing team. We didn't play our best footy last week, and these guys have been in really good form for a large chunk of the back end of this season. So it's a great challenge. We're embracing that and can't wait.
You spoke about last week just then. You've only made the 2 changes at the selection table. Could you run through the reasoning behind that? Is that backing in the young group?
Look, a little bit of that. I think ultimately you look at last week's game, 3 of the quarters were okay. 1 quarter was really poor. We got 8 goals, 3 kicked against us in the 3rd quarter. And the Waffle didn't have a game last week, which is sometimes good for the Waffle players and sometimes not great. So, yeah, there's some things from our players that we're seeing some development, but we need some more consistency, clearly.
Can you train that consistency? Like, how do you address that at training?
Of course you can. You just train the same way, whether it's your offensive style or your defensive style or your contest. You just train the same thing over and over. You get really clear on what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to do. You educate, and you can improve consistency all the time.
Andrew, your midfield has been quite young recently. You're taking on a very good one, Fremantle's. How do you plan for that contest and to try and at least even it up at best?
Yeah, so we appreciate it's one of Freo's greatest strengths, their midfield. But we love the challenge of that. Now, young midfield actually loves the challenge of that. We're in this space of every week we come against good midfield, so it's AFL football, and we're a young midfield that gets great experiences every week. We learn what other mids do. I sort of spoke about it, how many games our midfielders have played, but even in saying that, we've probably had a little bit of continuity of our midfield this year. These guys have played, a dozen games together for, I know it doesn't sound like much, but it's more than we had. So we're starting to understand each other a bit more, and it's a great challenge and experience, and we'll face it head on.
With the Rucks situation, you brought in Archer Reid. I know he's played previously as a forward ruck. You got Bailey Williams there as well. Which one of them do you look to maybe run through with Matt Flynn against Luke and Sean? Yeah, look, it'll be Bailey Williams. We appreciate Archer can play it as well, but Bailey's a really good ruckman who's improving his game as a forward. And Archer's, when he was playing earlier in the season, he's super competitive. For a young man, he goes about his football the right way. We really value the way he trains and competes, and we're rapt to have him back on our side. So that leaves you with 2 very young, tall forwards in Jobe and Archer. I would love to have Jake Waterman and Oscar Allen, but unfortunately they're not available. How exciting is that though, because they're both very talented players. Yeah, they are, and it's a huge challenge. Key forwards, not that I played it, but I'm assuming it's one of the most difficult positions on the ground. And we've got 2 seriously young players, but we think there's an enormous upside with the way they go about their football, and not too dissimilar to what I spoke about with the midfield before. They get great experience and work together. I think it's the first time they've played in the forward line together. When Jobe was playing Waffle, Jobe was playing down back. So there might be some chemistry that will take a bit of time, but it's exciting for our fans. And then this is your second derby now. What did you learn from the first one, and how do you approach the second one? Yeah, look, I think I said at last press conference, it's something I'd never experienced, a derby in my whole football career, and it's different. It's like a finals game. And for our team at the moment, we're obviously not going to get the chance to do that this year. So we appreciate being involved in games like this and can't wait for that experience. I think the whole state gets behind it. It's unique. There's certainly a different feel to it. We had a former ex-champion of our club sitting in our team meeting this morning, and just by chance, David Wirrapunda sat in there, which was great for him and us to share some experience there. So that was there's some history to this game, which we all appreciate. Most of the stories that you share? Look, we didn't ask him to speak, but he just sat in and spoke to the players out of the meeting, and we just appreciate the history of the game. Andrew, just how's Bo Allen going? Obviously, we saw him with off and carried on yesterday at training. Yeah, so unfortunate injury at training for Bo yesterday. Just got caught in a tackle. These things can happen. Still gathering a little bit of the information, but he's certainly not going to play football this weekend.
and then we'll work out whether it's a long-term injury or what it is. But it's unfortunate for the young fella. He's had a pretty tough year this year. He's had a couple of different injuries and lacked a bit of continuity, so it's a bit of a shame.
With a young guy like him, how much do you have to speak to him about? It's not just 1 year in your career. You've got hopefully a decade or more in this game.
Yeah, that's the exact conversation I've had with him a couple of times. Bo, like many young players, just are in a rush, and it's a great trait. We want players to be in a rush, but there's also the experience of, like, I talked to Jamie Cripps in his first 2 years at St Kilda, and it was pretty hard for him to break into the team. It's turned out he's had a pretty good career. So I appreciate that young players are in a rush, but Bo will be a good player for us for a very long time.
Andrew, is that something you're considering on Cale?
It's funny, as Joe was just talking, I could have said the exact same words that was coming out of his mouth. So I think every team would have plans in place for best players in the competition and then have contingency plans in place. So exactly the same as what Joe just said.
Bringing Elijah's back this week. Minor calf last week. Was he close to playing against me?
He didn't have a minor calf last week. No, he wasn't injured at all. We just thought he's a young man that hasn't played a lot of football, and he was on the edge. He was just physically and mentally tired, which young players are at this time of the year. So we made a safe decision to rest Elijah last week.
And he's better for the rest.
Yeah, he's great. He was not happy with the decision last week, but jumping out of his skin, if you know Elijah, he's full of beans. So yeah, I'm excited to see the version we get of Elijah this week.
And Vinny, the three-pronged attack that Freo have, how daunting is that, and how do you go about trying to handle that?
Yeah, they're in serious form at the moment. They're efficient, and I think that's what has really stood out probably the last month with Fremantle's game is their efficiency in the forward half. They've got multiple ways to score, which is what good teams require. So yeah, we appreciate that, and we got our matchup sorted, and there'll be some flexibility needed at times, and so we've got some young players in our back line as well, which would be a great challenge for.
Andrew, how is Harley handled this week, given the big media attention in Australia around his contract and future?
To be fair, Harley gets media attention every day of his last 4 years of his life. So he's exactly the same. He's no different, Harley. He goes about his business the right way, the same way. He's building a real consistency to the way he approaches everything, and this week's been no different.
I know you're not involved with the contract stuff, but does it excite you a little bit to hear that he might be staying around for a lot longer if potentially some things go your way? Yeah, of course I'd love Harley to stay. He's a terrific player, terrific person, and as his footy coach, I absolutely want him to stay. But my job every day is to make Harley as good as he can be and make him a great teammate, which is something that he's been focused really hard at. He will get a lot of attention, from the Fremantle fans, undoubtedly, every time he touches the footy. How does he go about that as a young man? How do you see him? Will he embrace that? Will that fire him up? How do you kind of see that weighing on his mind?
Yeah, I think both. I think he certainly embraces it. It's a lot for a young man to have that attention, but he seems to cope with it pretty well, and he's getting better. And every week, I think that maturity last week, when you might have seen he got thrown into a security guard, and he just went and gave a fist bump to the security guard after it and moved on, which was pleasing to see.
Just in terms of modern day contracts, what's it like for you? I mean, you had to try and scrap for your career. Now people are talking about 20 million over.
My 45,000 at the Gold Coast is not quite the same. I agree. Yeah.
So what's it like? I guess do you see that as a good thing, that players are getting more reward for? I mean, physically they put a lot on the line and things like that.
Yeah, I think the game is a hell of a spectacle, and I think the whole game's growing, and it's just where it's trending. So I think it's the players are paid what they should be paid, and they put on a great show.
A player getting over his age, getting potentially the largest contract in history, would put a lot of it's a burden that comes with that as a player as well. How do you handle the expectation that is on him to meet that contract when you're trying to coach him at the same time?
Yeah, so for me, I'd take the contract out of it because I think it's irrelevant. It's when you're one of the best players in the competition, there's a burden that comes with it, and that's it for anyone. So that's just real. That's what comes with being a great player in our competition, and it's the skill of being able to cope with that. So we train that from a mental perspective. It's challenging, but the best players embrace it and they go about their business, which I'm sure Harley will be one of those.